With San Francisco wrapping up their third consecutive day of training camp, it's the perfect opportunity to examine some players who have already started standing out on the offensive side of the ball. Starting off with the running backs. Throughout this camp so far, Christian McCaffrey has only really participated in individual drills, but today he missed practice, and this is probably just a maintenance thing, and as much as he was used last year, I'm not really opposed to this. But if Kyle Shanahan wants to keep Christian McCaffrey healthy, I do think he needs to start rotating in more of his number 2 back, and that clearly is Jordan Mason. One thing people have in their mind about Mason for some reason is that he's not good at catching the ball, but so far in this camp, he's probably San Francisco's best catching back out of the backfield. He's also adequate in pass protection, where he's able to quickly identify blitzing linebackers and then step up and meet them in the hole. As a back in his own right, he's a little bit different in play style than Christian McCaffrey. He comes in at 5'11", weighing 225 pounds, so often he's looking to run you over. Throughout the game, this type of play style often wears on the defense, so while he might start only getting 4 or 5 yards, by the end of the game, he'll be gashing you for 15 or 20, even though he doesn't have the craziest 40. Outside of Mason, you have Mitchell, and while he's productive when he's on the field, so far this training camp, he clearly looks worse than Mason, and I think San Francisco should probably trade him. Throughout this offseason, Mitchell has struggled as a receiver, and today he even fumbled it. So if San Francisco could somehow move off Mitchell for maybe, let's say, a tackle or a guard, I think that could be a really prudent move, especially when you consider the fact San Francisco rarely gives their number 3 back a carry. Outside of San Francisco's established backs, the rookies Cody Schrader and Isaac Garayendo have been battling it out this offseason. Of the 2 backs, Garayendo is the athletic freak, but has pretty limited experience at the position and really doesn't look that comfortable there. And to make matters worse for him, he hurt his hamstring day 1 of training camp and has been out ever since. In comparison, San Francisco's undrafted free agent, Cody Schrader, is much less athletic on paper, coming in at 5'8", weighing only 200 pounds, and he ran his 40-yard dash in 4.61 seconds and his 10-yard split in 1.55. But that didn't stop Schrader from leading the entire SEC in rushing, as well as setting a single-season rushing record for Missouri with 1,627 rushing yards. Regardless of who Schrader faced, he had great performances, whether it be Ohio State, LSU, or even Georgia. The biggest reason I believe he was able to have so much success at the college level is his ability to process what's happening on the field. In Missouri's outside zone scheme, for instance, you would rarely see Schrader choosing the wrong gap. But he didn't stop there. When he was out in open space and he had blockers around him, he set up his blocks in a way to get the maximum amount of yardage. Schrader's been able to transfer these skills over to San Francisco's training camp, where he's already had a couple of nice runs. He's also showed off his nice hands in individual pass catching drills, but he does have a pretty small frame. On his college film, he also excelled on blocking. So if it were me, I would move off Mitchell and put Schrader in as my number 3 back. Moving off San Francisco's running backs and into their tight end room, George Kittle this last season tore his core and had to have surgery on it, leading him to lose 30 pounds this last offseason. While he has gained back that strength, I do think it signifies how important San Francisco's tight end 2 position is going forward. The 2 players at the top of the pack here is San Francisco's newly acquired tight end Eric Saubert and their second-year tight end Braden Willis. Saubert's the veteran option here, coming in at 30 years of age, and he's a pretty good blocker, and he also had a nice catch from Purdy already in this training camp. I think he offers San Francisco a nice low floor option, but the player that truly has a lot of potential is Braden Willis. Willis not only appears stronger than he did his rookie year, but also is getting open against San Francisco's first-team defense and catching it deep on them. Since Willis is just entering his year 2, I do think San Francisco should go all in with the young player. In a similar way on San Francisco's offensive line, specifically on their guard position, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dominic Puni starting over Spencer Burford. Throughout this training camp, Burford has taken the majority of snaps at right guard, but today with Burford out, Puni took all of those first-team reps. And it wasn't bad either. Puni's exactly what San Francisco wants out of a guard. He's extremely nimble on his feet, which makes him an effective puller. He's not just effective in the running game, he might actually be better in the passing game, which is a nice change of pace for San Francisco's offensive line, who's kind of died on that the last couple of years. Last year, for instance, San Francisco's pass protection ranked in the back half of the league. So a changeup might be something they decide to do at that guard position. The other offensive lineman who I think might be on the developmental trajectory of a guy like Jake Brendel is Drake Nugent, the center out of Michigan. Wally's a little bit undersized for an NFL center, coming in at 6'1.5" and weighing 300 pounds. He was able to dominate both at Michigan and Stanford. Last year, for instance, he was a finalist for the Remington Trophy, which is given to the nation's top center. Like Pooney, Nugent is extremely quick out of his stance and makes an effective puller. And once he gets in a defender's chest, he's not going to let go. Nugent also showed off great durability during his college career, starting in a total of 39 games. So Wally might not start this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him eventually take the spot of Jake Brendel as San Francisco's starting center. He's so much better than the center Nick Zakelj who started today in my opinion. It's also notable Trent Williams is out as he looks for a renegotiated contract. Moving off San Francisco's offensive line and into their wide receiver position group, perhaps the most notable thing is the absence of Pearsall and Ayuk. This allowed a lot of players that needed opportunities to receive them. Most notably has to be Danny Gray. While Gray's always been able to burn defenses with this 4-3-3, he struggled to develop as a route runner early on in his career. But now, his routes are much more compact and he's utilizing the entire field, not just the go pattern. Gray's also been doing a better job of attacking the ball in the air rather than waiting for it to come to him. This has quickly resulted in him becoming one of the quarterback's favorite targets. Outside of Gray, San Francisco's 4th-round rookie Jacob Cowling has also seen his share of opportunities increase. And while he's done an excellent job of showing off his hands and speed, he has struggled as a return man. But as a receiver, it's hard not to like him. He has the ability to shake off defenders with ease, and if you just give him a sliver of daylight, he's out of there. But as I mentioned, he has struggled returning kicks and even muffed a few. Meanwhile, Ronnie Bell and Trent Taylor both look more comfortable back there. Speaking of Bell, even though he had an impressive rookie season, so far he really hasn't set himself apart from these other receivers, and he needs to, considering how much depth there is here. Trent Taylor, in comparison, looks not just solid as a return man, but he's also made several plays in this training camp, including a diving catch over the middle into traffic. The best wide receiver in this training camp, though, has to be Deebo Samuel. He's just so efficient on those short to intermediate routes. San Francisco's other veteran, Jauan Jennings, continues to be productive as well. Moving off the wide receivers and wrapping it up with the quarterbacks, Brock Purdy continues to look like he's a franchise quarterback. Purdy is noticeably more jacked and unsurprisingly looks sharp in this training camp and continues to look to refine his craft in any way. This offseason, for instance, he made it a point to work on his short area quickness so he can be a more effective running quarterback. And while Purdy did throw an interception today, he has said he's made it a point of emphasis to try things in training camp and practices that he wouldn't necessarily try in a game. So while it would be nice to see 0 interceptions out of Purdy always, I don't think that's realistic, and I think it would show a quarterback actually not trying to improve. But at this point, we know Purdy's a pretty good quarterback in this league. His backups, though, that's questionable. Brandon Allen, for instance, isn't going to win you many games at quarterback. He reminds me of a guy like Brian Hoyer, but probably worse. Meanwhile, Dobbs is wildly inconsistent. He's extremely athletic, and sometimes he'll put out wow plays, but then he can't hit the side of a barn. But that doesn't mean all hope is lost. Tanner Mordecai, the rookie, has done pretty well in individual drills, and I'd like to see him starting to get reps. He's younger than both Dobbs and Allen and is extremely athletic. His 40 is 4.46. And unlike Dobbs, I would say ball placement is a strength for Mordecai, especially on the routes San Francisco loves to run, like slants, drags, and intermediate routes. But ultimately, these are just some of my thoughts of players on the offensive side of the ball that stood out in training camp up to this point, and I want to hear players you're excited to see going into this preseason. It would also mean a ton if you could like and subscribe. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.